morning.
You.
Good. Can you hear me today?
I can.
Have you been having a hard time hearing me?
I remember.
Okay. I've been having an issue with, I actually had to go open StreamYard in Wave. I usually use Chrome because it can't find my microphone. And it's been like that for a couple weeks, and I didn't realize that was the problem. And all of my podcast recordings sound terrible.
Oh, no. Well,
Yeah.
adaptability is one of our pillars, I think, in
Yeah.
Mindset Monday, right?
So yeah, we finally figured it out. It was bad. I was like, why do these sound like I'm inside a washing machine? And it turns out it was using the microphone from my laptop instead of my like expensive one. And my laptop sits all the way over here with stuff on it.
Oh, no. That would be like, so do you, right. So that's kind of sounds like my setup. I have a laptop, but it's down there and it connects to a monitor that sits up here.
Yeah, same.
So, well, I'm glad you figured it out. That's awesome.
Yeah, so here we are.
Here, we made it. It's Monday. I'm going to be fully transparent. Like, this is a celebratory week for me. This is my birthday week. So we're kicking it off.
I didn't realize you were an October baby too.
So, I am an October baby. So I'm a little bit, I know. I'm a little bit jazzed. I'm starting the week off. I traveled and I just drove like 4 hours to go see my son and have dinner with him on Saturday.
Aww.
Like drove down, had dinner, drove back. It was great. It was a wonderful day. Then yesterday I spent the day reading, which so close to my heart. I'm reading a bunch of junk novels right now. It's my birthday, so just rom-com, total chick flick, nothing heavy. Did that yesterday, and then this morning I'm prepping because I'm moving everything into the morning because my sister, my niece, and I are going to see Pink this evening.
Ooh.
So excited about that. And then my friend's coming to visit, so it's kind of a crazy week. And I love this quote because kind of unplugging this week, just a little bit.
Yeah.
So do you want to kick us off? And
sure. So our quote this week comes to us from Miss Anne Lamott, and it's almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you.
This is so great. I love this quote because it's such a have you ever applied this to yourself? Like, come on, we've all unplug things and plug it back in and turn it off and turn it back on. And we do all of these things all the time, all day long. But have we ever really applied it to ourselves? Right?
Yeah. So before we can really get into the usefulness of this quote, I have to share the first thing that it brings to my mind because it's not what it's talking about. But in emergency medicine, we have this drug called adenosine, and it has an incredibly short half-life. It's one of the only medications that you actually push in as fast as you can. Because when this medication, we use it if somebody's having an incredibly rapid heart rate. Because when this medication goes to the heart, it literally makes the heart stop for 6 seconds or so.
Whoa.
So that when it turns back on, it comes back on properly.
Yeah.
And so that's
that sounds really scary.
It's a joke in emergency. Oh, it's terrifying. You have to put them on the crash cart when you do it. And if they are conscious, you need to sedate them because they literally die for a few seconds. Apparently it feels like you're when you're falling out of down a roller coaster is how it's been described. It's terrifying. It's not something we do very often, but that is truly the human equivalent of did you turn it off and turn it back on again?
It's the reset button.
Yeah, and then if that doesn't work, we have to actually do that with electricity. That's probably the biggest one. But anyways, that's exactly what I thought. So, to be clear, that's not what we're talking about.
No, we're not talking about a true physical
This is a little less literal.
Yes, just a little. Yes, just a little. Unplugging.
Just
Uh,
as important.
Great. I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. Because I think that, we talk about needing a reset and we talk about taking a pause. But then I think what we're really talking about is it doesn't even have to be long, right?
Mhm.
Take multiple pauses in a day. Sometimes my pause really is I'm just going to go get some more coffee for a minute while I get back in the right mindset, right? Like I'm not it's not it doesn't have to be a huge deal, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Reflux
And so the
doesn't even have to
question
be a
may
huge
come up
deal.
for some people, when do you take this pause and how long do you ha how do you know how long it needs to be? And the answer is whatever feels right.
Yes.
Now, we've talked before about the difference between ego feeling and intuitive feeling. So,
Uh,
ego feeling is, I like to compare it to like the whiny toddler in your brain, the I don't wanna. That one we usually want to push to the side and say, I'm the adult in charge here. We're not going to let the crying toddler who wants ice cream run the show. However, there's this other feeling. It's a bit deeper and quieter.
yeah.
And it takes it's quieter, it's not the whiny toddler. So it's takes a little bit more work with yourself to get in tune with that intuitive feeling. Let me see if I can give an example to make this a little bit more have a little bit more sense. So last week, it's funny, these quotes, Nicole actually, I think we shared that we
Yep.
put some structure around Mindset Monday and we have different pillars that we're putting it under. And I have it on my to-do list every week to pick a quote. And I went on there to do that this week when it popped up on my to-do list. Nicole's already laughing. And I opened up the spreadsheet and I went, Nicole had one too many cups of coffee, apparently, and went and filled out the spreadsheet through like May.
No.
It was good. All of that to say that these quotes are not picked Sunday night before by me the way they used to be. They're kind of done in advance, but this one could not be more timely, which is what's so interesting, because I had this whack me in the head last week, really. I might have shared I've had a lot going on with my business, good things, exciting things. I got accepted into an incubator program. I'm getting office space. I've got some clients. I quit my nursing job. I still have my last day to do like next week, but that was really exciting the week prior. And now last week, I started to get overwhelmed because all of those things have responsibility that goes along with them, right? And then on Thursday, I was working with a marketing lady who is a resource of this another entrepreneurship resource near me. I've just been finding all the things. And this was our second meeting, and she had to put together this very nice marketing plan for me. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was just in such a state of overwhelm. And she did a good job presenting it and breaking it down. It wasn't like she just dumped material on me, but it was just so much. And I was so overwhelmed and I could feel like getting tightness in my chest. And I was like, I just have to stop. I just need to stop and step away. Like I feel like I'm standing in mud right now, and trying to walk forward is just going to exhaust me further and not be productive.
Right.
So that was the very long story to say you just got to feel it out, really, and notice that about yourself. And it's those times where sure you could push yourself to keep going, but is that going to be a good way for you to spend your time and energy and mental effort and trying to make decisions when your decision making capability is probably really low? Probably not. I know for myself, I've actually like watched the clock when I'm doing this. When I get to that point and I'm feeling that overwhelm for whatever the reason is, it doesn't even have to be, quote, a good reason. Some days we carry more and we throw it up in the air like it's no big deal. And other days it's like crushing weight for the same amount of things. So don't judge yourself on that. But whenever I feel that and I recognize that I feel like I'm walking through mud and I can't breathe, if I take the time to reset however long that takes and then come back, I'm more productive than if I had spent that entire amount of time just continuing to try to trudge through.
Right. 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 I think about it as like swimming is kind of the analogy you used, mud, which is really good because a lot of times it feels like you're trying to lift your foot out of mud, right? I feel like you're right. If I take the break, then I can swim further than if I had just tread water that entire time, right? Like I
Right.
would just stay in one place. I'd work really hard, but I'd just stay in one place
And not only
versus
further, but also with less effort and angst and
like,
turmoil and actually enjoying the process as opposed
yes,
to, which, especially considering that are, I'm sure there's other people who are listening to this right now, but the target of this is for other independent patient advocates who are running their own business. So this is one of the gifts of being your own boss. And remember that I'm one who's guilty of it. Unlike a job where you have to do the things when your boss says you have to do them, now you are the boss. You
right,
owe it to yourself to recognize and honor when you're in that state and take that break and step away so that you can come back in your best form and actually enjoy what you're doing, because this stuff is hard. What's the point of being in business for yourself if you're just going to torment yourself?
oh my gosh, say it again. Yes, 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 yes. It's so interesting to me as we're talking about this because over the last, I don't know, over the last few years, I've really settled into this whole idea of unplugging when I need to unplug, plugging in really hard and strong when I'm able to do that. And the impact in my business and in my life is is pretty remarkable. I regularly, you guys have heard me say this many times, people think I work like 70 hours a week. My brother in law, my husband, my sister, people, like just in general. Nicole, how do you have enough time? And I'm telling you, I cannot stress this enough. It looks that way because of the productivity,
Mm-hmm.
not the number of hours, right? And so being nice to myself has allowed me to be so much more productive that it's like people think I'm lying, but I average between 30 and 35 hours of work a week. And that feels really good to me because it allows me time to do fun things. It allows me time to get really good outcomes for my clients. It really, really works. But be in tune, right? And take care of ourselves, which kind of brings me to the second point that I wanted to make sure we talked about this is that boundaries are really a form of self-care and
Absolutely, 100%.
putting right and finding a way to implement boundaries not just with others but I have found with myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And honoring my own boundaries with myself have been a game changer as well. I don't have to work 24/7, right? But I do have to get things done. And having a balance between that requires that I set particular boundaries for myself. So one of the things, and this is a very simple one, but one of the things that I do for myself every single day is I make sure that I get outside and get an outside walk in, nice and long. Now it can range anywhere between 1 mile and 4 miles. It depends on the day, but I got to do that. And then I have to read. Like those are two things that have to be in my schedule every day in order for me to feel like I can show up without resentment towards myself. So I'm gonna encourage you to figure out, what are some non-negotiables for you. I know there's another colleague of ours, friend of mine, who does shoot, I can't remember if it's a spinning class or a yoga class, but she does that every morning before she does anything for work. And I'm like, okay, that's what we're talking about. What are you doing for yourself first? So what do you think about that, Kayla? Do you have some things that you like are non-negotiable for you?
um I am working on implementing more. I've gotten more rigid, or holding the boundary better. I don't know how to put it. About nutrition. Nutrition is really big to me. Especially I'm breastfeeding, and I have this issue with breastfeeding. So when you have a letdown, and like the milk is coming, it messes with the neurotransmitters in your brain, and I believe it makes the dopamine drop.
Yeah.
And for some women, when that happens, they get really negative effects. It's called D-MER, and you can actually dysmorphic milk ejection reflex. And some women go into like a full-on like rage and anger. Thankfully, it's not that bad for me, but I do get this like sinking like feeling of despair and nausea. So this is with every letdown, which usually you have one about every hour and a half to 2 hours, whether the baby is nursing or not. So I've been dealing with that for 6 months. So I'm struggling with eating enough, actually. Plus I'm making more milk than actually my baby needs. So it's like, I'm in a state of starvation. It's not great. I literally just cannot eat enough calories to keep up with this, because I'm nauseous like throughout the day. So all of that to say, I've put more focus on this week. I have prepped out all of my breakfasts, morning snacks, and lunches to make sure that I'm getting good whole foods, healthy fats, proteins, fruits and vegetables. Because if I can at least get those first couple of meals in the day, then like whatever else happens, I'm okay. It doesn't bother my stomach. But between the nausea and then the busyness from the schedule I keep, whether it's chasing my kids or like chasing my dreams, I'll go all day and I'll be like, oh, I ate one protein bar.
Oh, yeah.
And then I don't feel good. And then that further drives the nausea. And it's like such a bad cycle.
Right. Well, good.
So really focusing in on my nutrition is my big thing right now. Activity's coming next. But, like we've talked about before, small changes are sustainable. You can't overhaul everything at once.
That's right. And before you know it, you've made big changes and you didn't even realize you were doing it by just making small little ones. I love that. I love that. So yeah, pay attention. And I know, Kayla, we're going to have some more conversations around boundaries for your time probably later today. But that's another place, right? To make sure that we're honoring ourselves and taking care of ourselves. Because the third thing I wanted to talk about is how this mindset of taking care of ourselves, I want to say emotionally and mentally, right? Our mental health, our emotional health really allows us to serve people better.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right. It's like this hustle. We've talked about this inside the circle before, where, this hustle mentality of, oh, work, 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 work. But the reality is that quality over quantity wins every single time. Right. And so if I can spend 2 hours performance, then the outcomes of that will be better than 4 hours at, poor performance, valley performance.
Yeah, exactly. That ties into what you were saying about how your time is so massively productive. So I would I guess I would like to say then it's not to counter the hustle culture, because especially when you are like, I'm feeling it, I'm starting out my business, it's on me to push it forward. So if I'm not working, it's not going anywhere. So there is a level of hustle and grind that is required to get that forward momentum. But it's a tactful hustle.
Yes.
Because
It's
like
the
you
hard
said, when I
go ahead.
tune into my intuitive needs for rest and
Yes.
to take breaks and to unplug for a few minutes when they pop up for me, then like you said, then the time that I am putting in, I'm getting I'm the same way. I get so much done in a day. Like I get when I look around at my peers and family members and whatnot, I'm like, well, I get more done in a week than most people do in a month. And but it's not from like running myself dead. It's I you recharge frequently so that you can sprint. It's like sprint and stop instead of just I'll just
Yes.
keep trudging through.
Yes, 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 yes. And also, the word that came to my mind is intentionality, which I also know is one of our other pillars. But I think that a combination of this is what you just said, right? Is unplugging when I need to unplug, and then plugging in at full strength when I need to plug
Exactly.
in,
Yeah.
and then being really intentional about what happens when I plug in, right? Like when I plug that in and I'm focused on that, I'm being not just plugged in, but intentional with that energy.
Right.
This is why we do this every week
Yeah.
because it is, you know, over and over and over the different things. Yeah.
And piggybacking off of what you were just saying about being intentional with that energy, that to me, I'm like, oh, that sounds really great. Okay, how do you do that? For me, it's
Mm,
the scheduling. I
yes.
do my, which is funny, I'm saying this right now because I actually didn't do it yet this week because Thursday, when I got overwhelmed Thursday, I took the rest of the day. And I'll share this in case anybody else is feeling this too. But I text Nicole and I shared her my feelings. So
Mhm.
as you may know, my background is as a nurse. I've been a clinician for almost a decade now. It's like hard to believe. But I've worked in the
Time goes fast.
hospital. I know. I've worked in the hospital. Oh my God, I'm going on 13 years now. Well, I'm quitting. So 13 years. It'll just stop there, I guess. Um, and I was telling Nicole, like when you work in a clinical area like that, you as soon as you clock in and you take responsibility for those 4 or 5 patients or however many you have, every single patient also has this entire list of things that you have to do with them. Their medications, their assessments, their skin checks. I mean it's a whole
Mhm.
it's quite a list, let's be honest. And
Right.
you cannot leave until all of those things are done. Like there is no, oh, I'll just do half of it and then the rest can go to tomorrow. Like it doesn't happen. And
Right.
I mean, usually, nurses joke like, okay, yeah, the shift ends at 7 o'clock, but you're usually still there catching up on the documentation of all of these things that you had to do because they can't get passed over. They have to be done every 6, 12 hours. Sometimes there's 2 hour things like,
Right.
so for over a decade, I have had this mentality of the workday is not done until every single thing is done for every single person. Now, that has created, I have a tremendous work ethic and I do have quite a capacity to work before I am exhausted and depleted. However, the other side of that is it's really hard for me to let myself stop, to
Mhm.
allow myself to say, oh, I didn't get everything done on my list today and that's okay. That's something that I've been struggling with lately. So anybody out there who comes from a clinical background, I didn't put two and two together
Yep.
that that's what it was until lately, but perhaps that could be of help to you. Although we have responsibilities to our clients, it's not at the same level as clinical responsibility, and you have to be able to give yourself some grace on that.
Right. Right. Like What I hear you saying is that the deadlines for tasks are very different in a clinical environment than in an administrative or advocacy environment.
Right.
And this is what I love about the whole idea of, well, and this is something that I put in my planner, is there's only like literally the list in my planner for the day is 4 things. And this is exactly why, right? Because I have 104 things on my to-do list. And my job every day is to figure out which 4 need to be done today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I love that. And part of unplugging for me or getting plugged in, I don't know, it's actually part of my plugging in process because I do the things like the walk and the reading and that kind of thing before. And then the next step for prepping for my day is sitting down with my planner and getting really clear on what has to get done today. What is the most important thing? I have a single thing. What is the absolute thing that if the world blows up today, right? Because that's a real possibility. If the world blows up today, what's the one thing I have to get done no matter what?
Yeah.
Right. And then there's 3 other things that I'd like to get done if the world doesn't blow up.
Right.
And I think that that's part, like we said, part of, I think we've moved into kind of intentionality, but
Yeah, it's all
hang
tied
in,
together.
right, exactly. But I think that that's part of that plugging in process, and each of us will figure out, what does unplugging look like? And what does plugging back in look like? Because I will tell you that if I don't go through that process every morning when I'm getting ready to come in and go to work, I feel the way you described the other day when you texted me. Like, I am overwhelmed. There's too much to be done. I can't seem to, like, I feel like I'm spinning in circles. I feel like, right? Because there's no clarity and boundaries around my day with being intentional. It's amazing to me. I know exactly when I've skipped that step because it happens. Sometimes in the morning, I'm like, I get back from my and I'm like, to be I gotta comb my hair and get ready. And then all of a sudden I'm in my day and I haven't taken that step. And I'll be like by lunch feeling really raunchy. And sometimes this is the other thing. You can do this at any time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so at lunch, if I feel like my morning has been wacky, I will grab my planner, I will go to the table, I will sit down with my lunch, and I will do that process, even though I'm in the middle of the day because it will calm me. It will
Yeah.
plug me back in with intentionality. And so that's kind of a unplug and then replug, right?
Yeah. Well, it shifts you back from you are controlling your day, you're running your day instead of your day running you.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Oh my gosh, this has been great. This has been a really good talk. I missed you last week. You
I
weren't
know. I
well, and
missed it
so it was
too.
kind of hard.
That
I
was
know.
probably part of my problem as I wasn't there on Monday.
You know. So this week, I'd love to hear from folks. Like, what do you do to unplug? The other piece of that, not only what do you do to unplug, but how do you know when it's time to unplug? Because I think Kayla and I got pretty clear on like I feel out of control. That's my not that's my trigger, my internal intuitive self saying, whoa, wait a minute, I need some help. Um, and when that happens, I know I need to unplug and then plug back in. So, 2 things. One, how do you know when you need to unplug? Like, what are your telltale signs or your red flags or whatever that is? And then, what do you do when it's time to unplug? I'd be really
Mm.
interested to hear from you all on that. Anything from you, Kayla?
Yeah. We didn't talk as much about that point. So I like to go outside. Actually on Thursday when I was feeling overwhelmed, my husband was running an errand with the boys, and then when he got back, we went outside and we have some land, so we were sitting like in our field. I was like, I just want to go lay in the grass in the sun with you, and like I literally just like was laying on him, and we were soaking in the sun and listening to the bugs, and I felt so much better afterwards.
Mhm.
Also, there is science behind like the neurotransmitter
Wow.
releases with a minimum 20-second hug. So,
Hmm.
which sounds like a lot on the surface. For romantic partners, it's a 20-second hug or a 6 second kiss. So you can try one of those on for size if you have a romantic partner. Or just find somebody to hug you. Sitting the sun, oh, it literally recharges. Maybe I have solar panels. I don't know.
Um, yeah, I agree. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that is kind of where we're at for this week. Next week we will be talking about authenticity, right? Is that
Woohoo! I
right?
don't remember off the top of my head.
Perfect. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about authenticity and well-being next week. Same time, same channel. Look forward to seeing you guys here. Look forward to seeing